Thanks to our creative partner, Spamhead Productions, a small independent sound recording company based in rural Hertfordshire. We specialise in creating content for all your podcasting needs, whether it's field recordings, vox pops, or capturing the atmosphere during social events. Spamhead Productions are on hand to take away some of the burden of editing for you. We can even help you design and manage a website for your podcast. Spamhead Productions, creative partner with 1800 Online. 1800 Online. Welcome to 1800 Online on Wednesday, the 4th of June, 2014. I hope you can hear me because everything at my end is telling me that you can't, but we shall see. Anyway, I'm just going to keep going. Let's have a look. The same crackling thing as before. How very strange. Okay. Right then, well, I can't do anything because everything's frozen, but hopefully you can hear me. Right, I'm going to play some music then, and I'll see if I can get this sorted, and then I'll be back to you very shortly. Oh dear, what a way to start the programme. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for that. Welcome. Let's hope we can stay on an even keel. Welcome back to the show, 1800 Online. It is with myself, Alan Taylor-Shearer, and I hope you are well. Okay, after last night's show, I felt very tired indeed and crammed a lot in. Well, this next 50 minutes is going to be just as crammed. Now, let's see if I can adjust that, because I don't want to be quiet. Because I'm never normally that quiet, you see. No. Right, lots to cram in, so let's just get on with it then. From the Community Press Group, who I'm pleased I'm in association with. I do a lot of work with them, and it's an awesome organisation to be involved with. The Future of the Community Press Group, A Change of Focus by Dave Eden, and this is from today, the 4th of June 2014. For the past 4 weeks, we at the CPG have been reviewing our publication strategies and determining a way of expanding our news platform. We have invested a great deal of time and effort into constructing and equipping a TV and radio studio at our Hertfordshire office. Working in tandem with Sonia Poulton, we filmed and produced 4 episodes of the SoniaPoulton.com show. This is now a weekly event, and we will continue to work in cooperation with Sonia to maximise the exposure of all things in desperate need of being brought to the attention of a wider public audience. Just to interject here as well, it's also been suggested, and it's something I'm going to take them up on, I will start presenting and producing a weekly TV show. And very much in the same vein as Sonia, but from my perspective, maybe looking at some different things and a slightly different presentation style as well. Make it uniquely my own, involving a bowler hat, but we won't go into any more about that right now. The concept of the Community Press Group is now 12 months old, and whilst it remains a positive one, it's one that has not been without its issues. Public journalism is not for everyone, and from first-hand experience, I know it to be one that takes a lot of free time and commitment. In today's society, free time is a luxury most people just don't have, and the necessity to work to survive, family commitments and general demands of society often leave little or no time for the pursuit of casual journalism. It's what has been, in many ways, a social experiment, and has become apparent that the desire to contribute is not always accompanied by the ability to contribute. That's not a criticism, just a simple fact, and the consequence of society today. It is for those reasons we will no longer host training days or publish guidance manuals. The CPG will remain in its current format, and there will be a continuance of articles from members of the Hub and contributing journalists. In addition to the CPG, on Monday the 4th of August 2014, we are launching an entirely new platform, livepulsenews.com. This platform will continue with the theme of publishing contemporary news articles, as well as incorporating a more focused, recorded and live-streamed digital programming format. It will be working in close association with Awake Radio UK and creating an Awake Radio television platform. We'll be concentrating on the production of full-length documentary programming, addressing and exposing issues most broadcasters won't touch. Our studio is equipped with 3 European Broadcast Standard cameras, enabling us to produce programming and documentaries to the approved mainstream broadcast standards. We can therefore produce programming, documentaries suitable for submission to national and international commissioning editors. This is something we aim to do, as well as facilitating productions on behalf of cooperative organisations. Additionally, we'll be making the studio facility and outside broadcasting film equipment available for commercial hire. We have recognised that many people are sitting on great ideas, worthy of greater media exposure, but lack only the facility to film and produce their work. For this reason, we've invested a considerable amount of time, effort and cash into acquiring the necessary facilities and equipment to get the job done. Another professional team member with over 30 years' experience of television production and programming making has joined us, enabling us to offer a comprehensive production service. We're now able to offer this service at a fraction of the cost other production services would charge. Over the last 12 months, we've made contact with and shared experiences alongside a number of potentially powerful groups and organisations that never make it into the public arena due to the lack of funding or sufficient corn seed funding to get them off the ground. This is just another example of keeping the poor in their place and a symptom of the economic prison and the powers that keep the majority of us in. We will remain a not-for-profit organisation, but recognise the simple fact that without a source of income, sustaining our platforms is an impossibility. In the past 12 months, we've received 2 donations amounting a total sum of £25. Again, this is just a simple fact of life and the fundamental reason why altruistic organisations such as ours and so many others ultimately fail. Additionally, for those wishing to learn about the workings of a studio, we're able to offer training days under the instruction of our broadcast professional. A maximum of 5 people over a 1-day session can receive instruction in camera techniques, use of multiple cameras, presentation to camera, use of auto cue, sound recording, synchronization, live sound and picture mixing, basic editing, formatting, publication of social media, alongside other subjects. Filming and editing a 2-hour studio program along the lines of the Sonia Poulton Show can easily be achieved for circa £180. It can also be broadcast live to our platform on a free view or pay-to-view basis. For those with ethical, life-enhancing products to promote, it provides a low-cost option for maximising your market presence. Attendees will also have the opportunity to film a 10-minute piece to camera for publication on their own site or YouTube channel. At a cost of £100 per person, 3 courses a month will enable us to cover the rental and running costs of the studio, office, utilities and rates. For information on available dates or to express an interest in hiring the studio, contact our production services at dave@communitypressgroup.com or neil@communitypressgroup.com or cheryl@communitypressgroup.com. Fantastic opportunities there for anybody and everybody to get involved, because vision and sound, multimedia is the way forward. It's the only way forward today. If you've got a message, if you want to get it out there, you could be doing this. It could be radio, it could be video, it could be YouTube, it could be writing articles. There are so many ways you can do it, and this is another opportunity for you. If you want to know more about that, go along to the communitypressgroup.com. It's as simple as that, communitypressgroup.com. And have a look at what's going on there. Let's stay on the Community Press Group and have a look at an article that was written today and submitted today by Neil Foster at the CPG Hub. Seeding the media with genetically modified facts to crop humanity. Control the food and you control the people. I wonder who that's quotes by. Let me guess. Henry Kissinger. Yes, indeed. So Neil writes, the drive to pollute our plates with genetically modified, in quotes, food substitutes continues at a pace like a 5-legged rat in a diet plan arranged by Monsanto. Owen Paterson, who has the audacity to call himself an environmental minister, has been pushing for the rollout of genetically modified crops across the UK on a scale unprecedented anywhere else on the European continent. He's also calling for EU restrictions to be lifted to enable Britain to go it alone in what would be the biggest ecological disaster to ever take place in this country. Not only would it infect the land, it would also destroy wildlife habitats and contaminate organic and other industry-produced food grown on our farms today. It would also infect all of us with genetically harmful DNA, with no independent studies have been carried out to determine once and for all if these frankenfoods are safe and fit for purpose. Not only for the environmental, but also for the very survival of the human species. Owen Paterson has recently been promoting the idea that there are no known harmful effects to humans due to the consumption of genetically modified, once again in quotes, foods. He cites a recent report by scientists and academics stating such facts, and has relied on this to lobby the European Union to lift their ban on the widespread implementation of such biotechnology. The European Union is, however, guilty of hypocrisy itself in terms of its policies on biodiversity, in what it claims that non-native species are a threat to that very biodiversity, whilst at the same time they wish to regulate seeds to the extent that in future it can easily be envisaged that clipboard-clad inspectors will be ripping organic tomato plants from greenhouses across the country, as the EU gives its inspectors new powers to do so. The EU is being constantly lobbied to allow GM crops to be grown, and they're being grown in many EU states. How can this be safeguarding biodiversity? GM crops do not exist on the planet until they are manufactured in a lab. Therein lies the real threat to biodiversity, as it has been proven without doubt that GM crops contaminate native organic species, to the detriment and survival of the latter. However, it comes to reports carried out by those opposing this potential ecological catastrophe. It seems rather reluctant to place much relevance on such studies and presumably consigns them to the conspiracy theory recycle bin. The current furore regarding supermarket losses, if we can believe such nonsense, is a clear sign that something is happening in the retail food market in the UK, and I can see the excuses being put forward by the big supermarket heads, whereby GM crops will be cited as the saviour and a great cost saving to the public. This, of course, will be a lie on many levels, as again, independent studies have shown the fallacy of higher yield crops being attributed to GM, and also the blatant deception that less pesticides are required. The opposite is the case on both counts. Cancerous tumours and sterility are also known effects of studies carried out on rats. This shows a callous disregard for the future of our nation's food supply and the general population. This is further exacerbated by the ban on genetically modified food in the Houses of Parliament. That's right, you can't get any GM food in Parliament, not allowed. If Owen Paterson is so convinced of the safety of GM foods, not only to the health of the populace, but also in terms of effects on the environment, then it comes down to one simple solution, which would, I'm sure, convince the public in the UK and indeed abroad of Mr. Paterson's sincerity. All he has to do is work to overturn the ban on GM in the Houses of Parliament, conduct a 10-year study of the safety of GM food, having used it in the salubrious tax-funded restaurants, which he and his colleagues from all sides of the political spectrum frequent in the Houses of Parliament, and then conduct an independent scientific study as to the effects on human health amongst the country's political establishment. Should he do this, and the studies prove beyond a reasonable doubt that such products are safe and healthy for the general population, then I'm sure he and his genetically modified lobbyists will garner a large degree of support. There is no other solution that could possibly convince the general public as to Mr. Patterson's sincerity, integrity, and courage of his convictions. Oh, you just know that could never happen, don't you? They would find a way around it. Anything less would be at best disingenuous, and at worst an act of absolute cowardice on the part of our political servants, who would have no mandate whatsoever to impose an untested product on the British public or the natural environment which Mr. Patterson claims to protect. In days gone by, the master would have a servant as a food tester to sample his or her food to ascertain whether it was fit to eat or had been poisoned. We, as the masters of our political representatives, require nothing less than that same devotion to your duty. One could just hope that they would realise that we're the ones in charge, because if majority rules, then we definitely are in charge. There are many millions of us and only 650 of them. Let's stay in Parliament, shall we? We're going to look at the Queen's speech. That was today. The Queen's speech, if you're not familiar with that particular tradition, is anything but. She doesn't write it. It's written by the serving government of the day. She just has to read out what she's told. This incredibly powerful, rich woman goes and sits in a golden throne with her fascist husband sat next to her, Phil the Greek, and then reads out what's going to happen to us over the next few years. Here's a quick rundown of what we've got in store. So, the Queen has delivered an annual speech at the state opening of Parliament, outlining the coalition government's legislative agenda for its final year in office. Yeah, just before we hit the one-party state. Just get rid of UKIP, sort them out after a term or two, and then that'll be that. And there is lots in there that will have an effect on your bank balance. Although much of it was confirmation of things we already knew were going to happen. So, income tax and fuel duty. The Queen said the ministers will implement measures to increase further the personal allowance and to freeze fuel duty. The government plans to introduce legislation to further increase the personal tax allowance and freeze fuel duty just before an election. How convenient. So, let's have a look. The personal tax allowance has been steadily increased in recent years to its current level of £10,000. In this year's budget, the Chancellor announced the intention to increase that to £10,500 in 2015-16. So this is just a reference to that becoming law. Oh, all this fiat currency, all these numbers in computers that mean absolutely diddly squat. The fuel duty freeze was announced in last year's autumn statement, but the planned increase for this September is abandoned. So they told you that it was going to go up, and then, oh, they've changed their minds. Aren't they a good, benevolent government? Fuel prices and the tax on them. 80% of fuel in the UK, by the way, is tax paid to the government. What have I paid for fuel today? £1.28 a litre. If somebody could work that out in dollars or whatever fiat currency you're using, then transfer that into gallons, then I might understand what that means. Pensions, what the Queen said. Legislation will be brought forward to give those who have saved discretion over the use of their retirement funds. So the government wants to announce a pensions tax bill, and in the budget they will remove the requirement to purchase an annuity with your pension savings, instead giving you the right to use the cash as you wish. So you can do what you want with your money. Once again, just before an election. That gets the grey vote. Well done. Also, the government's pension reforms will also allow for the innovation of the private pensions market to give greater control to employees. Yes, they're going to take on the Dutch scheme, the shared community pension. which is something that the Dutch want to get rid of, and they want our individual pension scheme over there. That's sensible, isn't it? Right, separate to the above, the private pensions bill will introduce a so-called collective defined contribution schemes, which supporters claim could boost your pension up to 30% by pooling pensions in mega funds. Yes, mega funds, just more for the bankers to rip off and more people's lives to destroy. Aren't you lucky? My pension is £400 a month, by the way, and I get that now because I was medically discharged. That's how much veterans get to live on, if they're lucky, mind, because not all of us are that lucky, and I'll be looking at that briefly in the next half hour, because it's going to lead up to a story and a set of interviews that I'm going to be covering in the coming weeks. So, housing. Right, the government will increase housing supply and home ownership by reforming the planning system. Why would you want to own something? Why would you want to have that millstone round your neck? Enabling new locally led garden cities and supporting small house building firms. So that's what she said. This is what it means. The £525 million Builders Finance Fund will be used to provide up to 15,000 further homes, while a £150 million fund is being set up to support service plots for custom-built houses. There will also be help in speeding up the time taken for sites already granted planning permission to be built on. So, once again, more fictitious money being thrown out there for people to go, oh, look at how wonderful our government is just 1 year before an election. What the Queen said, my ministers will continue to promote the Help to Buy and Right to Buy schemes to support home ownership. Oh, that nugget is turning out to be a complete farce. Essentially, the schemes are going nowhere, no matter how many critics think they should be scrapped. Whatever you think, it's staying. This is something else the Queen said. Legislation will allow for the creation of an allowable solution scheme to enable all new homes to be built to a zero carbon standard. Because carbon dioxide, CO2, that's right, carbon and 2 oxygen atoms, which is really heavy and can't get up in the air, and that we breathe out. Yeah, going to build these zero carbon homes. Zero carbon because nobody will be able to buy them to live in. There won't be any carbon in them then. What the government wants to do, the government claims it is committed to implementing a zero carbon standard for new homes from 2016. Yawn. Though suggests this could not actually always technically be feasible or cost effective for house builders to achieve on site. So it's going to set a minimum energy performance standard. Do you know, if people just had the ability to build their homes where they wanted, out of whatever they wanted, things would get on a lot easier, I'm sure. Oh, it might not look as pretty and uniform and standard, and the houses wouldn't be as small as is wanted by Agenda 21, and the rewilding wouldn't be able to happen, and the flooding wouldn't be able to happen, and it would go against everything that the EU and UN stands for. So we can't possibly allow people to have any actual freedom. Because even shopping is now going to cost you more. And not in rising food prices. The Queen had this to say on carrier bags. How benign. My government will reduce the use of plastic carrier bags to help protect the environment. Nobody wants to see carrier bags flowing around the place. Me, of all people. But there are ways of doing it. And this is not one of them. From October 2015, a 5p charge will be introduced on all single-use plastic carrier bags in England. There are already similar charges in place in Wales and Northern Ireland, with a charge expected to be introduced in Scotland this year too. However, small and medium-sized businesses will be exempt from the charge. So different rules, you see. Retailers will be expected to donate the proceeds of the charge to a good cause. Right. So what's a good cause then? Has that been defined? What else is going to happen to all this pretend money that's going to be flying around? We might never know. Childcare. As if the government cares about your children. Well, they do when they're going to be taking them away from you. This is what the Queen said. A bill will be introduced to help working families with childcare costs. So, this is another financial incentive to get your children into the indoctrination units sooner, quicker, and, pretty much from birth, I suppose. The childcare payment bill will help parents save up to £2,000 a year on their childcare costs. Once again, just before an election. Well done. That's the family vote sorted. As if voting makes any difference. Free childcare to disadvantaged 2-year-olds is to be extended from September 2. So if you're a disadvantaged 2-year-old, whatever that means, then you're going to get extra free childcare. Childcare should be free anyway. Families should be looking after their own kids, not farming them off to these government-controlled bureaucracies. And these government-controlled work units and indoctrination plants. Urgh. So angry. Married couples tax break. Measures will be brought forward for a married couple's tax allowance, which will recognise marriage in the tax system. Okay. Another piece of legislation that's been in the works for a while. Back in last year's autumn statement, the Chancellor announced the introduction of a transferable tax allowance for married couples and civil partnerships. This will be worth 10% of the personal allowance, so £1,050 will be introduced next year. The government believes over 4 million married couples will benefit. As one partner doesn't use their full allowance, it will be worth £210 per couple from 2015-16. Aren't we lucky? Aren't we lucky? National insurance. The way that we're all controlled. In respect of national insurance contributions, yes, we have to pay for our own slavery. Legislation will be brought forward to tackle avoidance and to simplify their collection from the self-employed. So another way to attack the self-employed and to destroy small business. The National Insurance Contributions Bill will do a number of things to improve national insurance receipts. Well, improve is a word that they use. In terms of simplification, it will mean that Class 2 NICs can be collected alongside Class 4 NICs as part of a self-assessment tax return, rather than the current system where there is completely separate process of payment. You know, they make this so intentionally complicated that you're going to fall foul of the rules, whatever you do. Energy. Here we go. Let's all get green. The Queen said, "My government will continue to implement major reforms to the electricity market." So that means prices are going up then. 2 new schemes are being introduced to ensure the UK gets a, quote, clean, diverse and competitive mix of energy generation. If you heard Granada's workshop last night, Steve was talking about the time he spent building blades for wind turbines. And he made it very clear that under no circumstances are those turbines environmentally friendly. Not at all. Incredibly damaging to the ground that they're on. I've got nothing against wind power, but wind power, in my opinion, should be for micro generation. It should be just one of a number of energy solutions that each individual would have on their home. Solar panels, wind, water, wave, tidal, direct from the earth, actual energy that's taken from the energy that's all around us, using the Searle effect, or plasma, or basically anything that Shaziz comes up with. Contracts for difference will help boost investment in low carbon generation. We can already have low carbon generation. We could be using hydrogen, where you take water, split it, burn the hydrogen, it mixes with oxygen again and becomes water. So you take that water, and you split it and you burn the hydrogen, it mixes with oxygen and it becomes water, and so the cycle continues. While the capacity market is a regular retainer payment to ensure there won't be any future blackouts. Of course there's going to be blackouts because the companies want more of your money, you haven't got it, so you won't get any of their energy. But if you take steps now, you could find that you don't need their energy because you could be creating your own energy. So you can keep your own lights on, and you don't need to think about using what comes through their plugs, which is generated in the most appallingly inefficient manner. I mean, we could be using thorium. I'm sure you've possibly heard the pod that gets played on this channel, and the others. We could be using thorium, which is clean and effective, and there's enough of it about to keep us going for many millennia. We could just be using the sun's energy as well, because that's raining down energy on us all the time. Okay, let's have another piece of music, and then we shall move on to another topic, away from the Queen and her hairy goat legs. Stay tuned to Awake Radio, because coming up in 15 minutes is more great talk radio. And don't forget all the affiliates, Shake and Wake Radio, Shaziz.com. These changing times with a Z, because I'm in that part of the world that uses the word Z, but if you're elsewhere, it's a Z. And of course, my very own network, where you can find lots of great programming from different contributors, including myself, Mark Taylor, Paula contributes. We play shows from Shake and Wake as well, and loads of other podcasts and truth that you can hear on 1800online.weebly.com. And that's where Spamhead Productions get involved, because they maintain, design, look after, and generally keep the website going, because frankly, I haven't got a clue how it works. But they do. So that's good. Right. Coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to be talking to a group called, or members of a group called veteransforpeace.org.uk. Go along to the website, have a look at them. This is their statement of purpose. Now, Neil spoke to me yesterday and was wondering if I would get involved with interviewing these people and finding out more about them, because, as I probably mentioned before, and I will mention again, I'm a veteran. Up until 2010, I was a policeman in the Royal Air Force, and I did 11 years there and saw far too much of the desert, and was medically discharged with lots of issues going on, which are very similar to the many members of this particular group, some of which are still serving, but not all of them. But shush, don't let anybody in Cheltenham know that I said that. All right, let's just keep that between you and me. All right? Because if anybody from Cheltenham gets wind of that, oh, it'll all go mad. Anyway, this is their statement of purpose for the Veterans for Peace. We have dutifully served our nation and do hereby affirm our greater responsibility to serve the cause of world peace. To this end, we will work with others toward increasing public awareness of the costs of war, to restrain our government from intervening overtly and covertly in the internal affairs of other nations, to end the arms race and to reduce and eventually eliminate nuclear weapons, to seek justice for veterans and victims of war, to abolish war as an instrument of national policy. To achieve these goals, members of Veterans for Peace pledge to use non-violent means and to maintain an organisation that is both democratic and open, with the understanding that all members are trusted to act in the best interests of the group for the larger purpose of world peace. A fine, fine statement of purpose. Now let's just have a quick look at some of the profiles that have been posted here on Veterans for Peace, because I think it's important to know who we are looking at and who we're going to be talking to. And these are just some of the names that you may come across over the next few weeks. as I get to interview and meet with these men and women. David Buck, who was in the British Army, served in Kosovo, Macedonia and Iraq, joined VFP because I'd had enough of the glorification and jingoism that is promoted to silence opposition to unjust wars and to highlight civilian suffering in conflict. Kirk Solid, he was in the Gulf War and Northern Ireland. I joined VFP after reading its statement of purpose. War brings harm to humans, the planet, and to all living beings who together inhabit this earth. For all those reasons, war should be avoided and peace should be sought. Walter Heaton was in the army between 1948 and 1953 in Malaya, and he joined the VFP to help abolish war as an instrument of national policy. Chase Sinner from Letchworth was in the US Marine Corps and was in the Persian Gulf. He joined VFP to make people aware of the crime and evil that war is. Ben Griffin was in the army, saw service in Northern Ireland, Macedonia, Afghanistan and Iraq. Can I just say that anybody who served in Macedonia and saw the stuff that went on there has got my vote. And I need to shake that man's hand, anybody that saw service there. He joined the VFP to reveal the true nature of war and to work towards peaceful alternatives. And the list goes on. Joe Glenton served in Afghanistan, joined VFP to counter the institution of war and to lead the way towards better alternatives to it. To that end, I'll help build a broad, strong, dynamic and democratic network of veterans. So many strong, powerful people. Carl Hemming from Warminster saw service in Afghanistan, joined the VFP to educate people to the true reality of war, to stop young men being used as tools of aggression and to end the glorification of armed conflict. And a man who saw service in Belfast, in Northern Ireland, for 6 years. He joined the Veterans for Peace UK after several years working as part of the Northern Ireland's post-conflict reconciliation process. To follow this course seemed like the natural progress for me because of my opposition to war as an instrument of government policy and the tendency of traditional ex-service organisations to act in support of this model rather than against it. Now that's an excellent point because the vast majority of veterans agencies and groups that are around here in the UK and no doubt in the US and across Europe and the world, because we must remember it's not just Western army forces that suffer after conflicts. What you've got to remember is that this is happening everywhere and our young men and women have been sent to fight bankers' wars. We know that all these wars are set and established and funded by the big banks, the families, the Rockefellers, etc. I don't need to name them to this very awake audience. But why should these men and women have to give their lives, not just by dying, but maybe, as I did, suffer the mental trauma of war? Why? What does it achieve? It makes somebody some more money and gives them access to natural resources which were put there for everybody to use. We're going to be finding out more about this group over the next coming weeks, and we hope to set up a number of interviews which will be broadcast on Awake TV, Awake Radio, and of course across the usual social networks. It's 1850 here in the UK, which means it is 10:50 on Pacific time and 13:50 Eastern. So with 10 minutes to go before the end of the show, let's have a look at something which in itself seems fantastic and amazing. And there's a little clip that I want to play for you, if I can quickly pull that up, of a bit of technology that we've talked about before, but this is a little bit of technology and a little bit about how it's actually made. and how it's produced and how it can be used quite reasonably. This is something I recorded earlier on today. Have a listen to this.
To ensure they can tell friend from foe, special transponders in Allied planes respond to the radar with an ID code. It was the birth of radio frequency identification. Fast forward 70 years and the same technology has come out of Allied planes and into A-line dresses and designer T-shirts. In essence, there's a radio receiver in all these clothes. Labels like Gary Weber rely on tiny RFID tags to ensure every store is kept supplied with every garment in every size and colour. They sell more than 28 million items of clothing a year. And thanks to RFID, factories always know what's hot in the shops and make sure it's in stock. There's a lot of technology packed into these tiny tags. And it all starts out here at Avery Dennison's facility in Clinton, South Carolina. The first problem is that RFID relies on radio waves to receive and transmit information. So each tag needs its own radio antenna. The antenna needs to be light, flexible, and a good receiver and transmitter of radio waves. So it's made from aluminium foil.
This aluminum foil is like what you use to cook turkey with.
But this foil is so thin it can tear easily. So it has to be stuck onto a clear plastic backing. Now it's ready for the antenna to be cut out.
This is my favorite part of the machine. This is like a giant cookie cutter. Cuts out the aluminum, leaves the plastic intact.
The cut is so precise, just 0.005 of a millimetre deep, that the process is nicknamed kiss cutting. The excess aluminium is peeled off, leaving behind thousands of little antennae. QC technician Joyce Campbell checks samples from the batch to ensure that each antenna has been cut out accurately and is correctly placed on the carrier sheet. The positioning is crucial if the antenna is to make contact with the brains of the tag, a tiny microchip. They need to attach a single chip to each antenna, and it needs to be placed with an accuracy measured in millionths of a metre, and they need to do it tens of thousands of times an hour. A roll carrying thousands of little strips of copper is fed into the bonding machine, where each strap receives a patch of adhesive. A robot arm picks an individual chip off the silicon wafer, and the robot places it onto the sticky copper strap with an accuracy of 0.003 of a millimetre. And then it does it again, and again, 15,000 times an hour. The machines in this factory are so efficient, they've brought down the cost of each tag from several pounds to just a few pence. But while the tags may be cheap as chips, it's vital they're working properly. Luckily, they can ask them. They send out a UHF radio signal, and each tag answers back with its own unique serial number.
You see, now I think that is amazing technology. I love technology, and I love how it can be used. And this ability that we have to track individual items is frankly amazing. And it's something that we as humans should be rightly proud of. But it's how it's used. It's how technology is used. It's how it impacts us, whether we want it or not. Let's have a look at this story from roboticsperm.com. That's right, it was just in the mainstream media recently, but this has been out there for quite a while now, and roboticsperm.com is up and running for business. What exactly is robotic sperm? It's one of the latest developments in the scientific community. Although much thought has gone into the development of this kind of sperm, German scientists have created the first sperm bots, which may revolutionize fertilization and other means of delivering microscopic medicines. Robotic sperm is biological matter that's able to be controlled inside the body. Every sperm bot contains a real single sperm that has a head encapsulated in a small metallic tube. As the sperm swims, it pushes the tube ahead. Instead of being let loose, this tube is magnetic, so the direction can be controlled with a magnetic field. They can control where and how your sperm swim using a magnet. And the story that this was picked up by the mainstream media, one of the stories that they showed was talking about magnetic fields very similar to those of a fridge magnet. So we're not talking about really strong magnetic fields, like you might get from an MRI. In fact, probably very similar to the magnetic field you find in, a smartphone, perhaps, which maybe you have in your pocket or close by that can impact with RF, EMF technology out into your body. A great deal of experimentation went into the creation of these sperm bots. Much time went into the development of the capsules that harness the sperm as well. Researchers began using titanium and iron nanoparticles to make extremely tiny nanotubes. As most people know, sperm can move extremely quickly when it's released inside the body. Robotic sperm may be the answer to many challenges in the medical field. These newly developed sperm bots will be able to advance fertilization and reduce the number of multiple births associated with treatments. Besides conception, these tiny swimmers may hold the key to future advancements in other parts of medicine. By being able to take control of sperm, it's possible to deliver targeted doses of medication to body tissues that are affected with cancer or other diseases. If this proves as effective as scientists hoped, it may be the tip of the iceberg for DNA-based nanobots that improve the medical industry. Just a minute to go. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to join me today on 1800 Online, and I will be back tomorrow at the same time, 6 p.m. Join me if you can. Stay safe, and to whichever deity you give your faith, may they bring you peace.
1800 Online.
It should be on every TV station all day.
1800 Online is brought to you by Kings Lynn Online, www.kingslynnonline.com, for everything that's good about Kings Lynn. Thanks to our creative partner, Spamhead Productions, a small independent sound recording company based in rural Hertfordshire. We specialise in creating content for all your podcasting needs, whether it's field recordings, vox pops, or capturing the atmosphere during social events. Spamhead Productions are on hand to take away some of the burden of editing for you. We can even help you design and manage a website for your podcast. Spamhead Productions, creative partner with 1800 Online.